What is up, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Profitable Chiro Network. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Kimbley. What we're going to talk about is something very special and very near and dear to me today. There's a 3-step simple process to help you work through and reframe the negative as a positive. And I used this step process literally this morning as I had these ants coming out of every single plant inside of our office. And so this is the 3-step process. Step number 1, what you absolutely have to do is you have to be able to realize what the problem is and recognize your fear loop. So for me, my fear loop was that there's going to be ants all over the office, and I start getting frustrated to the point of like, I'm not sure what to do. But literally I just decided, you know what? Normally we would go like the natural route, and I just got the chemicals out and we just got rid of all of them like on the spot. And so there's this level of decisiveness that I wouldn't have taken action like I do now. The same thing with the house that we live in is like when Heather and I went to buy a new car, there was a level of decisiveness because I can easily go, this is the fear loop that I'm trapped in. And as soon as you recognize the fear loop, you can start to ask yourself a different set of questions. So first off, it's just recognizing the fear loop. And recognizing what's the story that you're telling yourself. And sometimes we're telling the story that we're not worthy enough, that we're not deserving enough, that we can't make it work out, even though God can make anything work out as long as you're obedient to Him. There's all these things that can happen when you recognize a fear loop, but you got to recognize not only a fear loop, but what's the story that you are telling yourself. And one of the stories I was telling myself when I shared the story with you about the rent is that I just need to do more. And God's like, you don't need to do more. You need to trust me more. So recognize the fear loop. It's the most important key because as soon as you recognize it, you can do something with it. Step number 2 is you have to begin to rewire your brain and your nervous system and your neurology with the promises of God. And so for me, it's the Bible and looking at literally like, what does the Bible say about these situations? So for me, one of the things I'm overly obsessed with at this point is Psalm 23. You've heard me talk about it before, but the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He lies me down in green pastures. So this idea that God is always leading us somewhere and you don't have to be overly anxious. You don't have to be stressed out. You don't have to worry. You don't have to fear. The Bible says it a bunch of times, but the reason is because it's literally a neurological explanation. And even if we go back, like in the Bible, it talks about in Romans 1:20 that all creation reflects God's nature. So what's so interesting about this is like when we stress, when we worry, that's not like we're broken. It's a protective mechanism within our nervous systems. God made us that way, and He made all of nature that way. But when we're outside of the fear loop, when we can recognize the fear loop and we can start to rewire our brain and our neurology and our nervous system, we can start to show up with a different set of emotions that literally unlocks our ability to be productive, our ability to be present, our ability to be more emotionally connected, our ability to make better decisions, our ability to lead better, all of the things that you're looking for as a business owner or entrepreneur inside of your life. So first, we have to recognize the fear loop. Next, we need to rewire what happens inside of our neurology by telling ourselves a different story and reminding us the promises of what God made to us and the promises that are inside the Bible. And then lastly, we have to respond in faith. So responding is the part of it that's taking action. So when I shared the story about Heather and I's fear of moving into our new place, the response for me is really, really simple is that we're going to say yes, and we're going to trust that God will work out all the details. Now, there's a level of responsibility and stewardship and discernment that you have to figure out on your own. I'm not going to teach it to you on this episode, but responding in faith and understanding that like your true power comes from you know who God called you to be. And what I've realized is like, I know God didn't call me to be the person who was going to throw a fit and be frustrated and like sit on the floor and pout because there are a bunch of ants in here. And like, we just took care of business and then we get back to it because I want to show up for people in a certain way inside of my life. And so the last thing is responding in faith. So number 1, you have to recognize the fear loop. 2, you got to rewire your brain with the good. And the way that you do that is by staying in the Word and realizing what promises God has for you and He's already made for you. And then lastly, number 3 is responding in faith. And the coolest part, the reminder in this episode is that every thought that you think triggers a specific physiology. So if you worry, if you are fearful, your brain will release cortisol, which shrinks the frontal cortex of the brain. And when we shrink the frontal cortex of the brain, we have less control over our ability to be anxious or not anxious, our ability to make good decisions or make bad decisions, because the frontal cortex is responsible for shutting off the part of the brain that is anxious, that is fearful, that is worrisome. The frontal cortex is responsible for our faith. It's responsible for our hope. It's responsible for our optimism. And so making sure that you're deciding and choosing to go all in the decisions and the thought processes that you have, and being keenly aware that those thoughts that you think are setting you up to live at a certain level, whether it's in fear or whether it's outside of fear, etc. Anything that happens to us is not inherently good or bad or right or wrong. It's our response that triggers the physiology that creates the good or bad, right or wrong. So in that way, I'm not saying suppress your emotions. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to be sad, or you're not allowed to be mad, or you're not allowed to be frustrated like I was. You guys heard me say that a bunch of times. Like, I was frustrated, but I also realized that that would keep me in a loop if I didn't decide to do something with it. And so we are designed to have complex emotions. That's literally what our limbic system is responsible for, is expressing a wide range of emotions, and they only get more complex as we get older. So the reason that we need to have those emotions is because it allows us to connect with other people. So we express the emotions, but a simple example would be like this, is that if I feel isolated and I feel alone and I feel lonely, like no one gets me. Entrepreneurs do this all the time, especially male entrepreneurs. They feel like nobody else understands what I'm going through. Nobody else is going through this. It's only me, and I'm on this desert island alone, which is fine to feel that way. But then you have to look at it as like, what do I do with that? And instead of just wallowing in that feeling, we can look at it like, okay, God, this must be a good thing because it is preparing me for somewhere else. And so that's what I really think is special, is that when I go back to Romans 1:20, is like the idea that what God put in us is that everything in the world is a reflection of the spiritual. And so if I'm feeling alone and isolated, I have one of two options. I can sedate myself and numb myself to the reality of that and continue to stay isolated, which does not work. I promise you, I've been there. Don't try it. Or two, it's a call to figure out, okay, where do I need to build relationships? Or God, where are you wanting me to work on myself? And I see it all the time with people, and sometimes it's hard for us to self-diagnose the struggle that, like, the thing that I'm dealing with or the things that's frustrating me is the exact place where God is inviting you to grow closer to him and trust him more. The big myth is that a lot of entrepreneurs feel like that their cash flow is their foundation. So the foundation of my business is cash flow. And while there may be a little tiny shred of truth to that, it is not true. Your faith in what's possible through God should be your foundation. None of what you're building inside of your practice is yours. And the sooner that you realize it, the sooner you will literally be set free. Like, the sooner you realize that God is your provision, that he brings you the people or doesn't bring you the people, that he will provide a way when there seems to be no way. Like, none of it is actually yours in the first place. It's all his. It will allow you to steward every single piece of your business better. And that's really what I've seen. So cash flow is not your foundation. Make your foundation God. And I guarantee you that even if it seems like a struggle, life will be easier. It will be more fun. It will be more fulfilling. And it will probably be more profitable as well. Trust in God. Don't trust the worldly stuff. Trust what the Bible says. God has a promise for you. It is a game changer. And family, if you're interested in getting into a community that preaches this and lives it at the highest level inside of their practice and lets them infiltrate every single aspect of their business so that you don't have to be stressed, so that you don't have to be overwhelmed. This is not a cookie cutter approach to business. This is what true kingdom business is all about. I would encourage you to just follow me on Instagram at Dr. Daniel Kimbley. DM me and just tell me, hey, I'm looking for a not cookie cutter approach, and we can have a conversation about what it looks like inside the Profitable Chiro Network. Friends, I love you. I appreciate you so much, and we will come at you again next week. Peace.